Welcome to AARP, Illinois, Black History Month. I am Harrison Kern, and joining me today is a comedian from the Chicago area, Mr. Damon Williams. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Mr. Kern.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, man.
Good. For those who don't know Damon, he has been performing for 28 years. But how he got his start is relatively interesting. I understand that he owned a sandwich shop, but how did that translate into you going to the stage and doing comedy?
Well, it obviously didn't work out, so I had to do something else. But for the sake of everyone, they sold subs, and they had a way of doing it. So it was a sub shop, and I had it for 2.5 years downtown Chicago, but it wasn't really making money. But some guys kind of spoke about All Jokes Aside, the comedy club, an open mic situation. I always thought I could do stand-up, and I heard them talking about this big lip lady from HBO, and she's the host on Wednesday night, and they got an open mic. Well, that turned out to be Adele Givens, and I went into All Jokes Aside, and I never stopped.
Did you have that talent? You said you thought you were funny. Yeah. Growing up and going through school, were you the jokester?
No, I was never like a class clown. In fact, I was a middle child, so I was kind of quiet, but as I became, an adult, I noticed that people were laughing at some of my observations about things, and I wasn't even trying to make them laugh, so I called it laughing at my seriousness. And then when Eddie Murphy came on the scene with Delirious, that really was an eye-opener for me, because to see him, because we heard comedy before that, because, we listened to Richard Pryor and Red Fox, but that was all audio. But to see that brother do his thing the way he did with Delirious, and then in the 90s, Def Comedy Jam came and gave us the opportunities, and so that's how I got involved.
It's interesting that you mentioned Eddie Murphy. I think to a lot of people of this generation, or slightly younger generation, Eddie Murphy was to comedy like Michael Jordan was to basketball, because prior to that, you had the Bill Russells and people, but you didn't see it the way that you saw it after Eddie Murphy.
Exactly.
So it's really interesting.
Yep.
Now, for me, Red Fox, if you had to go back and you thought about Red Fox, if you saw any of his old work, what do you think about his comedy?
Well, Red Fox laid the groundwork. He was the predecessor to Richard Pryor. Mm-hmm. And prior to Red Fox, not a lot of comedians worked blue or did dirty art, And so even Richard Pryor, when he started out, he was emulating Bill Cosby, because you wanted to get on Ed Sullivan.
Correct.
If you wanted to be a comedian, you need to get on TV like that, or the Tonight Show and things of that nature. So Red did party albums, and it was blue, down home, and it was like a taboo situation. So, but he also took it from there, and he was one of the first African Americans to have a residency in Vegas, and of course he was one of the first African Americans to have a sitcom on network TV. So he's the foundation. Richard kicked the door open, and Eddie stepped through it. Martin Lawrence was another influence, because Martin really changed the way comedy clubs run. When Def Comedy Jam came out, they had a DJ and a host. And before that, comedy clubs just brought you up to know music. But the hip-hop generation and Martin Lawrence, so those are my influences, to be honest. One guy who doesn't get enough credit in this industry, who I always like to mention in interviews, is Franklin Ajay.
Oh, I remember him.
Of course.
Yes,
he was in Car Wash, but
yes.
people don't really know him as a stand-up. But he always had social commentary, and I was really influenced by him as well.
Well, when you started on the stage, did you have to get through your nerves? Because it's a lot, takes a lot to stand on stage in front of people.
Once you do it the first time, I was really shocked at the laughter. In fact, I even pointed it out in my first performance. I'm like, wow, y'all really laughing. But then, you still get anxiety, or I wouldn't say anxiety, but nerves, because at this point, it's all about memorization and what you want to talk about for me. So it's not about if they're going to laugh or not. They're going to laugh. I'm going to figure out a way to make audiences laugh. I mean, you have circumstances where you're not a good fit. Mm-hmm. One time I did a show, and it was all of these doctors, and they were medical professionals, but most of them were from the Middle East. So I had no cultural reference for my jokes. So my first 5 or 10 minutes, I was bombing. But then I just started talking about my family and my own personal experiences, and that is something that people can relate to if it's general. So that's how that works. But yeah, any comic that says he's never nervous, then he's lying or he's terrible.
Now, your growth, starting with All Jokes Aside,
yeah.
Where did you go from there? Where did that take you?
Well, let's stick with All Jokes for a minute, because All Jokes Aside was the preeminent comedy club for African Americans in the country. Mm-hmm. All Jokes Aside is where everybody who's anybody came, and that's how I got a lot of the connections that I got, because Chappelle, Chris Rock actually worked on his special, the one where he said, about OJ. He said, I'm not saying he should have killed her, but I understand. He worked on that. He did 9 shows at All Jokes Aside, and I was actually the host that weekend, so I got to watch him kind of craft that. So All Jokes Aside was kind of the epicenter for us. And then after it closed, I went south to a suburban location called TNT Comedy Hook, which was a white comedy club. And by white, I mean the comedians were white, the owners were white, and we just started doing Sunday night, a little urban night, they like to call it back then. And then it got so popular that they basically flipped the club and gave it to us Thursday through Sunday. And that was my home base until it caught a fire. And so I started finding hotel locations. First, the Holiday Inn in Matson. We did that for a few years. Then we moved the event from Holiday Inn Matson down to the Hilton. They gave me a room in the Hilton. And it was crazy because it wouldn't be a dedicated ballroom. Whichever space was not available or was available, they would let us use it every first Saturday. So that's how we kind of kept the circuit going in Chicago.
And then, you know, you branched out, you did BET, and you did a bunch of the comedy tours. How did those come about, and which one was the most enjoyable to you?
I mean, I did a show that was filmed at All Jokes Aside 6 months into my career, and it was called Comic Justice. So Comic Justice was comedy with a social conscience, and it was actually directed and produced by Sinbad's brother. And so they were real clean. A.J. Jamal was the host, and it was the opposite of Def Jam. So Def Jam had become very blue and very vulgar, and Comic Justice was the opposite of that. Of course, Def Jam went on to be major, and Comic Justice went away, but it was on Comedy Central. And so, you know, they would show it every February. They show clips of it in Black History Month. But after that, you know, after being on BET's Comic View, I started doing a lot of colleges because the kids watched that show. And so we did the Black Comedy Tour, which went on all the universities, mostly HBCUs, but then during the Black History and Homecoming, the white colleges would have a budget for us. And then I went from that to actually landing a spot on the Kings of Comedy Tour as an opening act. And I got that based on my relationships formed at All Jokes Aside. And of course, we know that was Bernie Mac, Steve Harvey, D.L. Hughley, and Cedric Entertainer. Did
you ever have an opportunity to work with Bernie Mac here in Chicago?
Yeah, Bernie groomed a few of us. Bernie was the epitome of comedy in Chicago. We all looked up to Bernie. You wanted Bernie's approval. You know, you wanted Bernie's stamp. And he used to do a Tuesday night at Miltroneers, and it would only hold about 60, 70 people. And if you didn't get in there by 5:30 at 6 o'clock when the show started, it was sold out. And if Bernie said you could do his room, and he only give you like 5 minutes and hand you $25, but you were so happy to get that $25 because that means Bernie Mac thought you were funny. So that, and then Monday night at the Cotton Club, which is an open mic, you know, but to do Miltroneers was more impressive to us because that means you were selected. The open mic was a little different, but yeah, I watched Bernie and I worked with him on many occasions. So to see him go from Miltroneers in the basement to the United Center and around the country in basketball arenas was really gratifying for me. I always used to watch when Steve Harvey would introduce Bernie, I'd go to the back of the house or the top of the building and watch the reaction of everybody, you know, just to see him get his love, and that was amazing.
You know, if you looked at the comedians that are out here right now, who would you like to work with that you haven't, and who did you most enjoy working with of those that are out here now?
I've worked with a lot of people. The only people I haven't literally shared the stage with in black comedy would be Martin Lawrence, even though I did his show, Martin Lawrence Presents, and then Eddie Murphy because he stopped doing stand-up. So those are the only two that are out here. I mean, Bill Cosby, but he ain't out here. I've worked with everybody else, Chris Rock, Chappelle, Kevin Hart, you know, all of the greats, Wanda Sykes, you know, Samore, who's amazing. Yes. So anybody that I haven't worked with is probably a younger comic that's coming up. And actually, you know, it's not a whole lot of them because, you know, not only from me being booked on shows, but I book comedians. So people I really want to work with, I'll just hire them.
I want to throw a few names out and just give me your opinions on Eddie Griffin.
Eddie Griffin, brash, in your face, another fearless comic, funny.
Tiffany Haddish.
Tiffany Haddish is, not only is she remarkable for her ascension from homelessness to where she is, but she's a person that's giving back. In fact, she just released another special called They Ready. First she did She Ready. She took 5 of her favorite comedians who she thought deserved a shot and gave them their own specials for Netflix. And now she just did another round of those, and those included male comics as well, and that's called They Ready. And she's a friend of mine, and I'm happy to see her success. Cheryl Underwood, Adele Gibbons, some more. And you look at the Queens of
Do you-
Comedy tour and Monique and what her battle with Netflix and things of that nature. Wanda Sykes is another one I would like to mention. Dominique. There's a plethora. And then there are young comics, Just Niche and Corey Bell.
You know, if you had right now, we're going through this pandemic, obviously, and it's changed how many people are able to do their business and work their craft. I know it's been very difficult for a lot of people. Coming back on the other side of this, what will you do different? Because one of the things that we've had to learn how to do is go through virtual things, whether they be bands or any performing artists.
Right.
Are you prepared in that direction?
Well, you have to adapt. And if I hadn't adapted by now, I wouldn't even be sitting here talking to you, because that means I'd be somewhere working at Amazon. But you got to figure out what the medium is. So now you have to do virtual. You have to do online. You have to do your social media, or do a limited capacity and live stream. That's my motto for what I'm doing at Riddle's Comedy Club. We're only allowing up to 50 people, but people around the world can pay $5.99 and join the show. So you have to adapt. In the summertime, we're going to do drive-in shows.
Now, Riddles is your club, correct?
No, I have a partnership with the owners.
Okay.
But it's in south suburbs, Alsop. So, it's just adapting. Anybody, I mean, if you don't adapt, you get run over. Just like, for instance, comics of my generation, which I like to call traditional comedians, have had to adapt to social media phenomenons who have all the followers because they sell more tickets. So you either got to figure out how to get your social media up, or you become a dinosaur. So, just like with the pandemic, we have to adapt. People that were teaching in schools, now they're teaching at home, or, so it's just a matter of being... to think on your feet and try to adapt.
Now, as a comedian, obviously, material is very important. How much of your material comes from your personal life, if you had to look at percentage of the material you do?
I take it, I feel like it's all personal, but it's just observational. So if it's not something I live through, it's something I observe. So that makes it pretty much all personal. I try to, as you get older and more mature in this industry and in this craft, you go deeper, and you don't do so much surface. Because I used to just do monologues. I could watch the news and read the newspaper back in the day and get 3 headlines and make a joke out of it. But that made it universal because everybody saw the headline. But as you get more comfortable with finding your own voice, what they like to say, your point of view, then it becomes more introspective. But at this point, it's really evolving because people's situations have changed. We've all gone through a major historical event. So to come out after the pandemic or post-pandemic and be talking about the same things I was talking about before, I feel like I'm doing a disservice to myself and also the audience.
Of the comedians that you have come across, there are those who are great on stage, and there are those who are great on film. You seem to do both very well. Have you had any more interest in doing more film work?
Absolutely. And see, a lot of comedians, some people get into this industry to get on stage and get fans so that they can make it to the movies. So they really want to be actors, or they want to be famous. I take this craft as my primary thing. It's my passion, is what I do. So if any auxiliary opportunities come from acting or television, hosting stuff like Windy City Live, or things of that nature, then that's all secondary to the stage. But I have been doing more acting and auditioning for more parts because I do like that. But it's not the same gratification. When you do a movie, you don't even know how the movie's going to turn out until the final edit, because the scenes aren't shot in order. So it's not like I tell a joke and I get that laugh right there. So I might do a scene and I might not know if it's funny to people until it's in a theater, or I see it on a DVD, or someone sees it at home or whatever. So it's different, but I like doing both.
What is your advice to young people who want to get into comedy, who see you and admire what you're doing, and what is the vehicle for them?
Well, right now it's a really tricky time because of the lockdown and the pandemic and the shutdowns. So I always encourage everyone to work on your social media. Even if it's doing your material, if you got 3 people in a room and you film that and put it on social media, then that's one way to get it out there. But see, we had TV opportunities in the 90s. You could do Comic View, Def Jam, Showtime at the Apollo, and things of that nature, and you would become a household name after a certain amount of time. But now viewership is so fragmented, so you have to find your niche, find your passion, find your voice, and then find your audience.
Indeed. And on that note, I want to give you one more opportunity to say anything else that you'd want to say, because we're out of time on the program. But would you like to tell our audience anything else?
Be still and quit knocking stuff over around here.
Don't stop and don't quit.
No.
I'm going to take his quote.
Yeah, no, I just want anybody and anything, especially young people out there, find what makes you happy. And if you enjoy doing it, you'll do it for free. And eventually prosperity can come from that. So find your passion. I told my son that. I tell everyone that. If you find something you're really passionate about and you dedicate your energy to it, you can succeed at it. And that's about it.
And with that, I'd like to thank Damon for being with us today as our first guest on AARP Illinois Black History Month. I am your host, Harrison D. Kern. Thank you very much. Coming to the stage, Chicago's own comedian extraordinaire, Mr. Damon Williams.
Thank you, studio audience. How y'all doing? All right, make some noise in the room. Let me hear all the noise y'all can make. Give it up for being outside and around other people. Clap for that. Yes. All the couples in the room make some noise. All the couples. Again, I'm gonna try that again. All the couples in the room make some noise. Okay, fine. That's what it is. That's it. That's all. Okay. Y'all know y'all glad to be out around other people. Matter of fact, that couple right there, how long y'all been together, sir? How many? 47? Jesus, y'all give it up for them. 47 years in a row. Y'all should be at the Black African American Museum, just on a pedestal, just the last couple that made it. 47 years, wow, that's amazing. So how did quarantine go for you? Yeah, I know, because y'all used to each other. But even though y'all been together all them years, y'all had never been together all them hours. But congratulations, give it up for them, 47 years. And welcome to AARP's Illinois Black History. This is a comedy extravaganza part of the situation. I'm David Williams, and I appreciate y'all being here. 47 years, I'm still stuck on that. That's amazing, man. My father was married for 61 years. Right, yeah, but not to my mama, so don't clap. I'm an outside baby, just so y'all know. And don't act like it didn't happen back in the day. We grown in here, 50 plus, make some noise, 50 plus. All right. Yeah, I was waiting on y'all to clap. I'm like, I know y'all heard the question. I'm looking at y'all. We in here, yeah. We 50 plus. I saw the Buicks out front. I'm in the club too. I'm over 50, and it's crazy because this is AARP. And shouts out to AARP. Give them a round of applause because it's crazy about AARP though is the fact that they start sending you mail about AARP when you're in your 40s. And at that point, you kind of offended by that. Like, don't be sending me no old people stuff. That's for old people, you thought, right? Until that card came. You start getting them discounts. Like, how much is that? Hold on, wait a minute. How much now? Bow, AARP. We like a little gang now. AA to the R to the P, baby. AARP. You only got two choices in life. Either live long or die. What you want to do? You want to live long. I ain't say get old. Notice I said live long, right? Yeah, I want to live a long time. It's a matter of, quality of life. You got to take care of yourself and, eat right and things of that nature. All the men make some noise. All the men. Yeah. All right. First of all, happy Father's Day, okay? Yeah, and I know it's not June, but don't nobody care in June, so I'm saying it now. Happy Father. No, y'all know we don't get no respect at Father's Day. Mother's Day is a national holiday. Huh? You can't, and it should be, I give it that, but you can't get a restaurant reservation 2 weeks out for Mother's Day. Call your favorite joint. They'll be like, nope, booked solid. Father's Day, that afternoon, 3:15, party of 20, right this way. It's ridiculous. That's if they took you out to eat, fellas, because they tricked us. They always hit you with the bull. Yeah, Daddy, you should grill. Then your ego kick in like, yeah, I am the best griller around here. Yeah, get my hickory chips. Now you don't realize you out here cooking for you on your own damn holiday. Like, wait a minute, I ain't see your mama cooking on Mother's Day. This is some bull. So happy Father's Day to all the fathers, and clap for the fathers. Yeah. But I want to live long, and I want to say this to brothers that's like in your 50s. You got to go to get checkups, man. How many brothers had a checkup in the last 6 months? Clap. That's a pretty good ratio for this crowd, because usually it's like 2 or 3 brothers. Now, see, ladies all go. How many ladies had a checkup in the last 6 months? Well, ladies, y'all go. That's why they outlive us, fellas. They go to the doctor. Let's just say this out loud. And whoever just cough, you get 2 of them, then I'm going to have you leave. Yeah, it's a 2 cough maximum in here. Coughing is no longer acceptable. You can't just cough no more. That's over with. Ain't no more coughing. I'd rather you fart than cough. Don't. You get 2 coughs. That's 1. Okay. You got to hold a cough like weed smoke. You know. You cough on a plane, they'll land that thing. Yeah, 23B had coughed 4 times. You're going to have to move. 2020 was a beast. 2020 was a mess. Had a lot of things going on in 2020 that I'm glad we got through, like the pandemic, of course. The crazy part about the pandemic, which we're not still through, and we need to go ahead and get vaccinated. You know, it's coming to the community, and it's supposedly disproportionately killing us as a people. So even though we're skeptical, because we are skeptical as a people, you know, we remember Tuskegee, so I understand. You know, I don't really take stuff when it first come out, because, you know, every other year or so, it's always something that's going to affect blacks and Latinos the most. Because y'all remember the bird flu? We kind of forgot about that, didn't we? You know why? Because it was about the chickens. And you know damn well we weren't going to stop eating chicken right away. In fact, we weren't going to stop eating chicken on no rumor. You'd have to actually see somebody eat some chicken and die. And you'll still try to rationalize, yeah, well, that's broiled. My chicken always fried, you know. That hot grease, kill all that bird flu. Put it in the grease. It was ironic that when it first hit, all the movies on cable was about the pandemic. Every movie came on, 12 Monkeys, Contagion, Outbreak. And we live in this. We don't want to see this mess. Whose idea was to put them movies on? But I'm going to tell you, those movies had a lot of little clues in it, what you should do. But not one movie told us we should go out and get toilet paper, did it? Every end of the world movie, they always go get water, they get canned goods and general. Not one movie said you better get some toilet paper. Who knew we were that concerned about our behinds in this country? It was still food in the store, but toilet paper was gone. That don't even make sense. You can't go if you don't eat. That's ridiculous. That's backwards. And then you watch those movies, right? We already wasn't sleeping on a regular schedule, and you was paranoid. And everybody in this room at one point, after going to bed at 2, 3 in the morning, after watching 8 movies, got in the bed, now that's in your psyche. You laid down and a breeze hit your throat. Uh-oh, now you thought you got it, didn't you? Everybody in this room at one point woke up in the middle of the night. I think that's it, Jesus. I'm pretty sure that's the corona. You ran to the kitchen and put a pot on the stove with some orange peels and ginger and hot water and started sucking steam. So about, bring me a blow dryer. I heard on Facebook a blow dryer kill it. We all went through it. And then they shut the world down, man, and that was a really tragic situation. Any essential workers in the room? Any essential workers? Clap if you are. Okay. What type of work? Nurse. Like you still a nurse? Like you were you in the hospital today? Okay, well, give her a round of applause and stay away from her because she's been in Ground Central now. No, we really appreciate all the essential workers. Teachers, any teachers in here? Any educators? No, all the essential workers. So they shut everything down, and when they shut everything down, it included the hair salons and barbershops. Now, in our community, that's a tragedy. No, for real, because it didn't make sense. Ladies were really hot because the liquor store and the dispensary's open, but the hair salon was closed. They're like, how the hell can I get a drink and a smoke, but I can't get a hairdo? And don't get me wrong, ladies, y'all know how to do y'all hair, right? Of course you do. Some of y'all just didn't know how to do the hair under your hair. You knew how to style that wig or that sew-in, but them Kawhi Leonard braids was perplexing. Some of y'all got back in touch with your scalp, didn't you? Talk about Black history. You went out and got some pink oil moisturizer and some hair food and figured it out again. Fellas, don't you laugh. Fellas, too. Fellas, was before the pandemic, it was all type of jet black beards walking around the city. Boy, around April, every dude on Instagram looked like Santa. I'm like, you ain't got your just for men in, huh? That Beijing done left you. And then we had the social unrest, right? And we had the riot and the loots and stuff like that, the looting. And I'm not a proponent for looting. I am a proponent for protesting and standing up for our rights. So when looting happened, I never condoned that. And they, here in Chicago, they looted one of the major liquor stores. Y'all know on Stony Island. I ain't got to say the name, but it's gone. But I wasn't really too concerned about them because I never saw the parade that was sponsored for Bud Billiken by that store or, a softball team. So I wasn't really mad. But I'm not condoning looting. But once they looted this particular liquor establishment, I do support African-American entrepreneurs. So I did buy a couple cases of liquor because the revolution must be subsidized. And I do have enough Tito's at the house for 2022. But during that little period, that was another thing. My son was involved in a situation. My son's an activist here in Chicago, and I'm very proud of him because he's been in the movement for like really concerns like 2015, 16 around Mike Brown and all that. And he's been talking about defunding the police and demilitarization and abolishing prisons, things of that nature. And it seemed far-fetched. And nobody really was talking about it. So it's almost like he felt like, people thought he was crazy, but they have a point. And defunding the police does not mean getting rid of the police or doing away with the police. It's moving the resources so we don't need as many police. Y'all understand that, right? And so, because it ain't like police prevent crime. They don't solve no crime. Nobody in this room has never had a police ring your bell and say, a guy was about to steal your car, but I caught him red-handed. It's like, they don't solve crimes. They write them down. But anyway... They show up afterwards and make a report. So in May, like Memorial Weekend in Hyde Park, my son was involved, and he actually just arrived at a demonstration, and the police assaulted a lot of the demonstrators. That whole weekend they was going off, and they was going real hard at him, and they assaulted my son, so then he got taken into custody. So now his friends hit me up like, your son locked up, you got to come down and help us get him out, blah, 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 because he wasn't charged with nothing. So now I'm out here in this movement. But mind you, this is after being in the house, literally in the house since March for 2 months. And they was out there, no justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. And them J's and P's, I was concerned because jump and putt, that's droplets. That's a lot of droplets. So I'm like, I'm trying to fight the power, but I'm also trying to fight this Rona. Can y'all slow down with these J's and P's on my neck, right? So then we went off to do a march, right? And I was involved in the march. It was called I Have a Black Son March. It was out in Marionette Park, and that's the stronghold for the police that live in the city. And, we marched through there. And let me tell you something about that. I learned a lot, and I gained a lot of respect. In 2020, we lost John Lewis, and give him a round of applause for his life and his achievements. Talk about Black history. Very historical figure, man, and I have respect for them because they marched back in the day, and they really marched. They marched from Selma to Montgomery, huh? That's a march. We went from 111th, made a right at 115th, boom. Ha-ha. And that's another thing. When you're in the march, ask questions, because they told us in advance it's going to be a 4-mile march. So we got to our little destination, and we said our little things, and then they just dispersed, and there wasn't no march back, and there wasn't no songs and no chants on the way back. So I'm like, well, how we get back? They're like, this is an 8-mile march. This is some bull. So... And the crazy part, we was out there, and we had on Nikes, and we were comfortable. The civil rights workers of the 60s, they did their thing, and we dropped the ball kind of because we haven't been doing that. So when they marched, they went from Selma to Montgomery with a dress code, huh? Come on now. Dr. King marched in Florsheim shoes, right? So he had corns at some point. Ladies had on kitten heels and full dresses. Ladies, damn well you ain't going to march in a kitten heel. You know what I'm saying? And if they had sneakers, they ain't had Nikes, they had like Chuck Taylors. Y'all remember Chuck Taylor? They thin and flat. Ain't no pad in no Chuck Taylor. Can you imagine marching from Selma to Montgomery in some thin Chuck Taylors on some hot Alabama asphalt? After a while, they was looking for the hose. Where them hoses at? We heard about it. Keep the dog, but spray my foot with that hose. It's ridiculous. So our march, this is the funniest part about the story, the only reason why I'm really telling it. Our march was led by a local pastor, and I ain't going to bust him out because this is AARP and this corporate. But he lives in Chicago, and he has a church, and his last name, anyway, I ain't going to do it. but he was leading our march, right? But obviously he is not from back in the day and not from the movement because his chants was all off. Chants supposed to be concise. No justice, no peace. He was doing whole sentences. We was out there looking dumb as hell. And no more shooting out there in front of the school while the kids in there trying to learn. We like, no more shoot outside the school while the kids. How are we supposed to say that all together? And we don't want no more people having funerals because the police be killing them. We like, we don't. But the thing of it is, we're doing this because we're trying to do an outreach and we're trying to get people involved with everything that we're doing as African Americans, because we've been behind, we've been lacking in a lot of areas, but we're making strides. We have Vice President Kamala Harris, give it up for her, all right? And people were giving her flack, talking about she wasn't black enough and all this, but let me say something about that woman. She did a lot in her job, and she did a lot to get where she is, and she went to a HBCU, and she's an AKA. You can't get much blacker than that, so stop that. We have a new Secretary of Defense, the first African American, Brother Lloyd Austin. Give it up for that. We are making strides, you know, and we just got to take care of each other, love on each other. And shouts out, I was asked about if anybody was educated, because we got to give our teachers more love too, man. Give it up for our educators. Any parents in here or grandparents that was doing virtual learning? Yeah, that was a challenge too in 2020. Some people found out your kid wasn't as bright as you thought, didn't you? Some people had to flunk their own kid at the house. Some of y'all had to go and apologize to the teacher. I am so sorry, Miss Jackson, for every time I came up here and cussed you out about Tonquavius, because Tonquavius will not be going to 5th grade. His work, I gave him a U. He has a red U because it was unacceptable. Tonquavius will be doing summer school. Let's give it up for AARP for doing this. If you have the opportunity, you know, take care of yourselves, wear your masks, and please wear your masks, because we're not using them right. If these masks are our saving grace, we ain't gonna make it, because people had a mask on walking by themselves and then come in a huddle and pull it down to talk. That is not how the masks work. And the masks are letting us know, you know, for the people who have breath that ain't that great. Now you see what the world been going through. It's hitting you back in the face. Now you see why the break room used to clear out. So, and if you don't know who you are, smell your mask, okay? These masks are providing opportunities for people who funny looking, but you in shape. This is your time to shine. You can flirt all in Walmart like, hey, how you doing? She has no idea you have 3 teeth in your mouth until the 3rd date. So y'all keep being safe, take care of yourselves, stay in shape, and I'm Damon Williams. I got to get out of here. Thank you.